The next Joe Rogan. You may have heard that Joe Rogan recently signed an exclusive contract with Spotify. It hasn't been announced the time period yet, but he was making $30 million a year. So this contract is supposed to be for over $100 million. So people are guessing it might be 3 or 4 years, but the time length hasn't been announced yet. But when an industry starts to become very lucrative, then a lot of people flock to it because they want to make money. So people always wanted to be professional athletes, but when the athletes started making, $20-30 million a year, then everybody wanted to do it. Like, 50 or 75 years ago, professional athletes didn't make that much money. People flocked to Wall Street because you could make a lot of money. Not as many people that have choices of everything they want to do flock to teaching. I mean, some of the best people in the world are teachers. I'm not saying that they're not. And teaching is, in my opinion, as important as Wall Street. There's nothing wrong with Wall Street per se, as long as it's done well. There's nothing wrong with anything, any job for the most part. Maybe some jobs, but very few. Most things can be done honorably, that are legal. But people tend to flock that have options to the things that give more money and status. I mean, some people know. Some people could be, rocket scientists, but they choose to be teachers, but not as many. Most people that have the option to be hedge fund managers, don't become elementary school teachers. I mean, it's possible, but... So the next Joe Rogan is going to be a professional podcaster. Like Joe Rogan, basically, he started 11 years ago, and nobody was into podcasting back then, so he built it up. Same thing with influencers. People became great influencers organically, a lot of them, but in the future, like you have professional athletes, now you can have professional podcasters and you can have professional influencers, and a lot of these fields, you could have professional AI professionals. So what does it mean to be a professional podcaster, or a professional influencer, or a professional AI professional? So it's going to be both, schooling. People are going to get degrees in these things. Like, you might think it's crazy, but if you can make millions of dollars a year as a podcaster, then universities and Udemy and other places are going to be offering courses and certifications and degrees on how to be a professional podcaster. Just like, the NCAA athletics basically is a school, teaching grounds for how to be a professional athlete. I mean, a lot of NCAA athletes never make it to the pros. Obviously, most don't. I think I saw an ad once, I think it was 98%. I was a Division I NCAA athlete, and a good one too. But, obviously I didn't make it to the pros. But I had a great experience. But so the next Joe Rogan is going to be someone that is trained. Like, for example, like the Olympics. Olympics used to be amateurism, and then, once over time, and it became even more and more status, then, some countries like Russia started, putting people in training for events when they were 5 years old. And, the dream team came along, and, the best in the world, that were professionals. So, podcasters, you're going to have people that are, this sounds a little crazy, but you're going to have people that are groomed, from, just like you remember, like in tennis, like, all those camps where people were groomed from when they were like 5 years old. People are going to be groomed. I mean, if the money in podcasting stays and grows, people are going to be groomed for the time they're 4 years old to be gamers. If there's huge money in it, they're going to be groomed for the time that they're 4 years old to be podcasters. They're going to be groomed to be artificial intelligence experts. They're going to be groomed to be, genetic sequencers, if that's the right term, or people that are, expert in geneticists, I think is the term. So the paths to these emerging fields are going to become more formalized. It's kind of like the internet. Like, At the beginning, anybody could make a fortune from Google AdWords, and the internet was a lot more democratized. Now, the corporate, you can't compete against Amazon, you can't compete against Facebook. The internet was supposed to democratize everything, but the corporate interests or the powers that be always scoop it up. How are you going to compete against Facebook? How are you going to compete against Amazon? Although our company does compete against Amazon, but so does Shopify and a lot of other companies. But, be that as it may, in the main, there's a very big concentration of power and influence, in all fields. And it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be that, in the future, like right now, anybody could have a podcast, but it's becoming more crowded. You could always have a podcast, but it's going to be that the lion's share of the money is made by, the big companies that roll up the best, just like, CNN and NBC and Fox, they hire the best broadcasters and all the other, major networks. All the best teams are going to hire the best gamers. They're going to hire the best podcasters. They're going to hire the best geneticists. It was said that famously there was free agent nation, that everybody was their own, basically freelancer, to write their own ticket. But these things become, to a certain degree, co-opted. It's the same thing with the blockchain. Blockchain was supposed to be basically, a decentralized equalizer, like, Bitcoin, anybody can have Bitcoin, but, the corporate interests are taking over the blockchain. I'm not an expert on that, but from what I read, I do read a lot. A lot of companies are taking over the protocols. Even the, currencies that rest on blockchains, like, China and other countries are working to develop their own digital currencies. So these things that always start out as being democratized, tend to be co-opted because the people that have the money see that the power, the money, the influence is going into them. So the next Joe Rogan probably will not be getting 100 billion. They'll probably be getting $1 billion. So let me explain that. So by the law of accelerating returns, companies are getting much bigger, much faster. Like Uber got to 50 billion in like 7 years, Instagram got to 1 billion in, I think, like a year or two. I don't know the exact time period, but it was very short. And what it is that, like, Elon Musk, for example, he's one of the wealthiest people in the world. He is kind of like, Revenge of the Nerds. It used to be that, people were interested in math or science or things just because they were inherently interested in it. Just like at one time people were interested in professionals, being a professional athlete just because they were interested in it. But now it's like you could take that interest to be a podcaster or to be, quote unquote, nerd interested in math and science. I make millions and millions of dollars or billions. Elon Musk is making billions of dollars. Larry Page of Google is making billions of dollars. Basically what he did is he wrote algorithms. He wrote algorithms to create, a better search engine. He created PageRank. So the people that are the best in, for example, space exploration, or mining asteroids, or, helping to solve global climate change or quantum computing, these are going to be the rock stars. Like Elon Musk is a rock star. If Elon Musk was born 50 years ago, 50 years, I don't mean 50 years from now, I mean 50 years before he was actually born, his path, his trajectory to success would have been much, 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 much more difficult. To outside success. He might have, been caricatured as, someone with a, pocket calculator. Not that there's anything wrong with pocket calculators, but my main point is that, the Joe Rogans, like Joe Rogan is a celebrity, and the influencers are a celebrity, and Elon Musk is a celebrity. As we get into the law of accelerating returns and these outsized payouts, you know, these people in the future are going to be more famous than presidents because they will have more power.